My project for the Menschel Fellowship investigates the distinguishing architectural elements in the Ger settlements in Ulaanbaatar, Mongolia. Ger settlement is a unique urban habitation phenomenon caused by the migration of herders from rural areas into the city with gers, the nomadic felt tents. The objective of the project is to identify urban architectural elements that would bring the residents of ger settlements together and to understand the cultural, social, and political impact through everyday objects of the architecture of ger homes. The intention is to raise awareness of a not so well known part of the world and to spotlight the crisis of migration and urbanization based on the local conditions. Despite the fact the research was done remotely due to the pandemic, I could learn the real bits of Mongolia. And it was not about the romantic connotation of nomadic herd life in the vast scenery of Mongolia that we often see in old documentaries. I wanted my project to be about a city people live in, where things are rapidly changing but also slowly. The city has grown so fast, not so much its urban infrastructure, the government assistance, and social awareness for community engagement. In Mongolia, where a word for a community does not exist in their long nomadic culture and history, how could the urban residents in ger settlements envision their life for a better future? Is a ger still relevant today? Is it still central to their identity? What do they need the most to make a new life in a new place on their own?
Through acts of occupation and transformation, public space can become a threshold for mutual aid and education.
And we have to give people all access available to work with
Native faith, the belief of ancestors who lived on the Slavic land, coming back among Catholic domination like weeds between sown seeds. Faith in Poland links with Christianity, communism, governmental authority, protest, community. Native practitioners, within parameters of those who carry Slavic name, speak Polish, live in Poland, and know native gods' names. I, Andzelika, meet most requirements. Żercas. How do they gather? Why do they gather? When? Where? In what circumstances? Under which conditions? How inclusive and how exclusive is native faith's congregation? What draws others to the practice? How much is it nostalgia for the past, attraction to aesthetics, attachment to national symbols, a search for connection with nature's elements? To gather, to celebrate, to worship, to dance, sing, scream, walk softly, to free oneself, to circumambulate the fire, to protest by coming together.
My research for the Menschel Fellowship centers around Soviet films as a way to examine psychological perception of space, and to explore how that perception might be physicalized in an object. In spite of its physical nature, our understanding of space is largely assembled from the fragments and glimpses in our memory. Because we can exist in but one room at a time, our conception of space is entirely psychological. Through its glorification by Soviet cinema, the individual home in the USSR became a psychogeography of the collective state of domestic existence. When we visualize spaces in our minds, there are certain objects that serve as fiducial markers in our memory. Furniture, for example, has the ability to root our understanding of space around it. Furniture also played a central part in Soviet domestic space, as it was in a sense the vehicle that defined spatial use. Because there was no designated rooms for sleeping or dining in the Soviet Union, Soviet understanding of domestic space was largely controlled by large storage cabinets serving as machines that enabled eating, sleeping, studying, resting, and recreation. My research is focused on exploring the strategies for reconstructing interior domestic space using nothing but film stills.
When I first found out I got Menschel, I packed up all of my bags and I took it as a sign to move back to Israel to live with my grandfather. When I got to Israel, I found out we were going to be under a strict 4-month lockdown. So naturally, I picked up my camera and started to film the day-to-day life. In doing that, I realized I was digging deep into my family history and trying to make sense of my connection to the land. So I started looking at old photographs and looking at old objects left behind by family members, as well as really digging deep into the memories I had when I lived here as a kid. When lockdown was lifted, I finally made my way to Amirim, which is a vegan and vegetarian village, and I began to create the documentary that I originally proposed. And when I got there, I needed to find a place to stay, and I came across Ovik and Daniel, who are raw foodists, and they are also foragers. And they have a property where they rent out ecologically friendly homes to people. And I asked them, because I was really curious, if they could teach me how to make an ecologically friendly home. And the documentary film ended up turning into a 3-part documentary film that follows my time in Israel and my time in this village, and it's called In the Land of Milk and Honey.